Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. A nice Saturday. Lot of rains here in Mumbai. I don't know about other cities, other part of the world, what it is now, day or night. So actually, welcome to second episode of SCM Talk Show. So this is the second one, and the first one we had on 15th of August. So we are going to have this every alternate week, and next one I think is planned on September 12th, if I'm not wrong. So the topics that we are choosing here in this talk show are based on your responses. We had a survey where we said, what you would like to listen about. I think so a lot of responses came, and the first session was on inventory optimization. And then I think the second best, I think the most sought after topic was digital supply chain. So we said, let's have digital supply chain. So this session, as Nistush actually said, will be recorded and made available not only on the YouTube but also on our free mobile app. There is a Novex mobile app. You can download that app. There are some freebies right now. We are going to expand the offering in that soon, but you will know what we are doing there. So we are going to put everyone on listen only mode. So please be on listen only mode. Please mute your mic and please don't turn on your camera. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to submit in the chat box. Okay, so you can submit the question as and when it comes to your mind. So what we are going to do is we are going to have a slot towards the end to take all the questions. Depending on the time, how much the time is permitted, we'll do that. So that's about a little bit about the logistics part of it. So it's my pleasure actually to introduce Mr. Murugan Palanthi. He has diverse experience in FMCG, manufacturing and high technology sectors in supply chain, sales, operation, analytics, etc. He is currently operating as director for global planning excellence. In the role, he is responsible for global supply chain planning process development, planning technology adoptions, capability building, and global supply chain analytics in Johnson Johnson. So I think everyone knows Johnson Johnson and is a big successful company. Prior to this, he was playing the role of general manager for new product development at Johnson Johnson Consumers. And before that, he worked in Dell. He also worked in Cadbury and he also worked in Marico. So a lot of experience he has gathered, a lot of cumulative experience he has. So he has taken Dell to a prestigious Franz Eldman Award in year 2013. So this award, if you don't know this award is like a Nobel Prize in the space of advanced analytics, right? So received Edelman Laureate Award, the Global Apex Award in Analytics from Informs for the nomination Dell's channel transformation through application of advanced analytics. So for the work done by he and his team. So big congratulations to him, though it's quite late and very, very old news, but still, so he has contributed to 10 plus research papers also, okay, and publications. So unlike, practitioners where we forget education and training and, development, after we leave the university and the college, and he is an alumnus of very prestigious, very, very prestigious institution, NITI. So when you listen NITI, you think about supply chain all of a sudden. I think you go to any organization, you find, our NITI, our professionals in every supply chain. So he's also the batch topper. He was batch topper. So, he was batch topper and best outgoing student medal winner from NITI. So you're listening to a great, mind, absolutely a great mind. So I think one of the effort, which he has put in and very, very unique, innovative, and also beneficial to the entire industry and society, he is conceptualized and he's running a supply chain practitioners council. So I think first he started in Bangalore, I think when he was in Dell, and subsequently when he came to Mumbai in Johnson Johnson, he took the same initiative and took it forward. So I'm sure some of you have attended SCPC conferences, and if not, I would suggest that you attend the next one. There's a lot of knowledge sharing. I mean, all practice oriented, no academics. Though we, for the hosting purpose, we choose alternatively one, corporate organization and sometimes, academic organization. Okay, so it's a go-to place for supply chain excellence. This forum has more than 300 professionals and academicians running successfully for the last 4 years. Okay, so this is free. There's no fee. There is no sort of membership. Okay, all supply chain professionals are welcome to join here. Okay, more the better, because the idea is to spread the knowledge as much as we can. Spread the practice-oriented knowledge as much as we can. And he's successfully managing the analytics interest group. There is a AIG group supported by NASSCOM. So within NASSCOM, this AIG group, he's managing that. That's a special group, purpose group for analytic leaders in India. So welcome, Mr. Murugan.
Thanks. Thanks, Ravi, for a long introduction. Great to catch up with you all. It's a big effort or a kind of dedication, I must call it, on a Saturday evening, taking out time and listening, willing to listen to some of the happening things around the industry. Appreciate you all for taking out the time and looking forward for the session.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. In fact,
Sure.
I would have gone on and on, but I had to cut down a lot of sections,
No issues.
So, I mean, it was not really long, it was really brief, if I may say so.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of the practice-oriented insights you have, a lot of, I think, academic excellence all at the same time. So I think let's start some discussion on digital supply chain management. So
Sure.
I think it's a very, very current topic, and I think this pandemic has brought that topic, I think, completely in the forefront. And I'm sure it's that this topic or the digitization of the supply chain has accelerated, because of this pandemic. Otherwise, maybe it would have taken more time. But I think a lot of work has been done and a lot of acceleration has been done. And today is the topmost discussed topic, I think, at the top level also, because I think the supply chain has completely got disrupted because of the pandemic. We all know that. And the young professionals especially are very, very keen and interested in knowing what it is, because young minds get really excited when you talk about new technology, new techniques, about digitization and so on. So I'm sure it will really excite new minds also a lot. So as we know that it's supply chain management is transforming very, very rapidly. And the transformation is mainly, the driver of the transformation is digital supply chain digitization, and that is what the main driver of technology of transformation is. IT is driving supply chain transformation every day. So those who update their knowledge obviously will survive. Though those who update their skills will survive. So recently also an ASCM has updated the score model. If I'm not sure if people know about the ASCM score model, and they have included a digital framework. So digital capability model, they call it DCM, for supply networks. And they talked about some 7 components. There's 6 components there: synchronized planning, dynamic fulfillment, digital development, intelligent supply, smart operations, and connected customers. So I think these are going to be a lot of focus areas in the future for digitization. So let's hear from Mr. Murugan now, who is doing a leading work. I would say leading, definitely, quite in a leading space as far as India is concerned. And I think he was, he was going to the Europe. He was taking a new role in the Europe, but I think pandemic has kept him back, and good for us that we are able to have him here and listen to him, right? So he's done a lot of work in space of supply chain analytics for business intelligence, planning, digital supply chain. So a lot of areas. So I think this time won't be enough to I think take out the knowledge from his mind. That will be, this is a too small a time, but we'll do our best. So whatever we can do. So my first question to Mr. Murugan. There's a lot of buzz about digital supply chain, so all professionals are usually confused what it is. Now the buzzword is being used by anybody and everybody to sell all kind of products, so there's a little confusion. Everybody calls digital supply chain, everybody calls so a lot of confusion. So can you please describe what digital supply chain in a very simple language, so that people get it, and what it is not, so I
Sure.
think to you, please.
Yeah, sure, Ravi. And I just want to make a call out very clearly that whatever I would share in next 30 minutes or 40 minutes or so, it's all purely my point of view. So it doesn't represent any of the organizational point of view. I just want to make it clear on that. With that, Ravi, it's a wonderful question in terms of it is kind of, I would say, most abused word is the digital supply chain sort of thing, right? Um, so if you look at in the reality, to kind of make it more understanding to anyone, so I would say very simply I would split the digital portion into a hardware and a software, right? That's just a analogy, or a hard portion or a soft portion, right? Hard portion is about what you would able to touch and feel, right? Things like we have been talking about, things like robotics, 3D printing, and IoT, the sensors, the storage devices, and so on and so forth. Those things are comes under like more of a hard portion or a hardware of the digital supply chain components. And there is a software portion of it. Software portion, or the soft portion, is the data science, artificial intelligence, the machine learning, the data analytics, and whatnot, right? So those things are can't be touch and felt sort of a thing. That's a sort of people typically associate digital supply chain to only data science or data analytics. No, it is not, right? Any the simple definition could be any technology which helps in improving the operations. Any technology, right? It could be even if someone creates a good communication, a machine to machine communication, or even an Excel sheet based quick automation, right? Anything is qualified to be a digital, right? It is all about branding what every organization, some of the consulting companies are trying to do it. So anything which is kind of would help you in terms of improving your productivity, improving your operations in your supply chain, would be qualified as a the digital component of supply chain, right? Now I will split this into another two areas, right? This digital supply chain, or a digital component in the supply chain, can help you in two areas, right? Typically, this could help you in we call it as RTB, CTB. RTB stands for run the business, and CTB change for change the business. The run the business is nothing but where you apply some digital nuances, digital capability to improve your efficiency, improve your productivity. Would comes under run the business. So you want to do a better you want to come you want to do better the way you have been operating. You want to do your run the supply chain. Instead of run the business, it is run the supply chain in a more efficient way. Then that becomes run the business component. Change a business is what everyone is really excited about, right? How do you bring in innovation? How do you add some capability which was not existing in your organization in the past, right? You want to do something different, right? You want to create some sort of a competitive advantage which your competitors are not using, your customers are not even thinking of those kind of services. Then you do certain such type of intervention that comes under a change the business or a change the supply chain sort of areas, which is kind of which would drive the innovation in the supply chain. So run the business, change the business, or run the supply chain, change the supply chain. So these are the two components at which people can look at supply chain, and you would easily look at correlate things onto these two portions. Things like your simple automation, the robotic arms deployment, your basic cloud computing. Now everyone is saying that no, earlier big organization only could able to afford the enterprise ERP systems, and or they could able to afford any planning technology solutions, etc., because those technologies were costing in millions, right? So now everything is kind of digitized, everything is paper use, paper license, all those things. So those things I would say it comes under the run the business. Versus when you talk about the change the business, when people are talking about the advanced the artificial intelligence, the machine learning components, or things of application of IoT devices, and to get some unstructured data from the transportation, from the manufacturing, from the suppliers, trying to integrate them, etc., is really a kind of a differentiator from your your competitor. So that is what I was calling as a change the business component of it. Ravi, that's just sort of a summary of what is digital and where it is fitting in. I just want to burst that myth, saying that digital is not only the data. Someone does a data science, a very good coding. That's not only digital. Digital is much more bigger than that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That actually gives us a wonderful insight, So I think it's not only the soft part, but hard part also. So, but we keep hearing a lot of terms every day. And I think data sciences, artificial intelligence, machine learning, as you said, and, analytics and blockchain and cyber physical systems, a lot of terms we keep understanding. So, I mean, we keep hearing. So, where should supply chain professional focus for the future to be future relevant? Where should they focus? The hard part is application, and where should they?
See see, we can keep giving a high level ideas, Ravi, right? One of the practical challenge what we are facing is I would call it as the maturity of the industry and the capability of an individual to talk in the digital parlance is very, very important. The experience, the prior experience. And I will share as we go along in the journey, how did I even move from a hardcore supply chain profession into a digital journey? It has not been an easy one, right? It is not an easy one. And it's a very, very difficult one, because we don't expect all this. People who are into a supply chain domain are not expected to be a software profession or having a coding experience, or very strong in statistics, or so on and so forth, right? So it requires a lot of it is not impossible, but it requires a lot of kind of competency building within oneself, right? And there are very strong and people are there are far and against kind of thoughts on this, saying that the future of supply chain is going to be humanless supply chain, right? People are saying that it is happening. It is happening. If you and the when I say maturity of the second part on the maturity of the organization, ties back to the region of operations, right? And many multiple factors, right? Is it an supply chain profession in India? Are they supposed to be an expert in data science and analytics, etc.? I would say no, right? But that's where we make a big mistake, right? That's where if you bring in that insights, if you bring in that insight, that's going to make your role more successful, and that's going to make you more successful in your career as well. So that's the difference. So can someone live without knowing what is digital? I will chase the supplier, I will do only the good planning and things around it. Yes, one can do it, and they can be they can run their career, right? But if you want to be get a differentiated perspective, differentiated growth in your career, etc., I think this is an interesting area. And my strong point of view in this space is the developed markets or the Western markets are very much ahead, and in like in every area, right? So we are far behind. That's why I keep when I keep saying it, since I'm into a global role, I see what is happening, and then my team is working on the global the digitalization, etc. So I would have a different perspective when I was working with Marico, which is an Indian organization, which is a much more matured Indian, one of the matured most Indian organization. But I see a good heavy difference between when you look at a global competition versus a India level digital requirements. That is kind of that is getting that is shaping the capability requirement, right? In an Indian kind of organization, is it required you to have a differentiated or a extreme amount of data or digital capabilities? I would say no. But if you don't have it, then your career is going to be linear. If you want to be an exponential one, I think this is an area which you need to learn and apply in your in space. And I say this to students, right? and when I teach analytics or digital organization, if even a student, if they think that I will use data science, I will use digital once, if only I get into an analytics organization, if only I get into one center of excellence for digital supply chain, etc. I think they are making a very big mistake, right? That is not the area you would be really successful. When you apply this digital components, digital learning, data science, your IoT concepts or a blockchain concept, everything in your work area, when you bring in, that's going to create a wow factor, right? Try to learn it. It's a long journey, but it's quite possible.
Thank you
Sorry
so
for a
much.
long-winded answer. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So another question to you is, there a lot of things. I mean, it could be hype, it could be reality, but you keep on thinking about a lot of case studies. Sometimes with WhatsApp groups and some hypes about this is what is happening, that is, and sometimes the supply chain professionals feel, am I left out? Am I too far behind? Am I missing something? At the same time, I was very happy. We are listening to one a webinar. I think it was in April, if I'm not wrong, organized by NITI, where speakers were only practitioners and there were nobody from consulting organization or from an IT vendor. And then I think the opinion there was, there is more hype than reality. So I would like to know from you, because it should come from horse's mouth, how much is reality and how much is hype?
Sure. See, Ravi, it is happening, right? But where it is happening, how it is happening, is something I want to draw the people attention here, right? So I would put up multiple dimension. One, I called out the geography, what we are talking about, right? Which geography we are talking about, and second, what sort of industry we are talking about, right? And what sort of organization per se we are talking about. What sort of organization we are talking about. I'll try to deep dive into each of the element, because strongly believe, or even many of the industry experts strongly believe, technology thrives in complexity and organization culture. Two C's I just want you to remember. One is complexity and culture. These are two C's. Um, that's where, when you talk about digital, and when you talk about any of those advanced concepts, that requires a very complex use cases, right? That's why you see globally, every multinational organization, every big organization, when you are trying to be in a global role, they talk about a lot of big technology, digital transformations, etc. Versus India, right? India has its own challenges, right? I would say a very basic example, we all might have traveled worldwide, some of the countries and so on and so forth. You can even look at the airports when you are trying to book your check-in time, right? So when you're checking in, you will have three people to lift your luggage and put it into the conveyor in India, right? Versus you go to any of the Western countries, everything you need to do it. Even you will not have any the people to check you into it, right? Because of the labor. I will come to the point on this, emphasize the point on the labor availability, the cheaper labor availability, and so on and so forth, right? Even our warehouses, why people are not going for a high level of automated guided vehicle or ASR, auto storage retrieval systems, or even a drone based systems. You can see all the innovations are happening, but our Indian systems are little behind, because when you do an ROI, when a return on investment between this and that, always I think the decision would be very natural, right? So when I say it is a fact, it is a fact which is happening in a complex environment, in a different geographies, in a company which thrives on that culture, in terms of the digital nature organization. Versus in typically Indian companies, we are always looking for product, the return on investment. We are looking for the frugal innovation, we call it as, right? In a local Indian language, it's called as jugaad, right? So
Yeah.
you will try to do things within the purview, right? And you will you will spend a lot of time on to in terms of your sales and marketing investments, etc. Companies would be very willing to do it, not into a digital investment. I have seen in my experience, right? That's what I quoted the example of Marico. Though it is an Indian company, I will tell you, in 2003, 4, 5, 3, 4 period, when I was part of Marico as an organization, when global multinational organizations were like Unilever were were kind of really struggling to do a forecasting using their primary sales, what they are selling to their said to their distributors. Marico was doing a forecast based on point of sales. I'm talking about 2005, right? So we kind of that is the sort of advancement what organizations are looking for, because in this case you had a good complexity because they were expanding their distribution network, and they were using the tabs and the handheld to capture the information and so on and so forth. And there is a good culture in the organization to invest onto this capability, and they were foreseeing this is coming in their way. So I'm not saying that in the Indian organization are not there, but there are very few such organizations. It is not to question them. Even if you look at the complexity, my own belief is the B2B organization. Let's take any B2B organization. By nature of the B2B business, you may not have that kind of complexity, right? In terms of sales, distribution, your customer management, and you will not generate that much of data. It is very straightforward. So versus a B2C sort of an organization. So there are multiple factors which would decide whether it's a hype or a fact, which is in the which is what I believe. And last point I want to drive here is the cost is a big factor, which is what we have been talking about. Over a point in time, if you see last couple of decades, I will always draw an analogy of organic food to the sensors, right? This is an interesting analogy. Organic food, why everyone is not consuming? Because you don't have a scale, right? So if you don't have the scale, it is at a higher premium. It's a high cost, right? So companies are would not able to afford that, right? Same thing with the organic foods also, right? So what is happening currently is like I've given already an example, right? You will have all the data as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, planning tools as a service. Can you imagine, like earlier, if you want to do any planning, right, you will go for an APO systems, or you need to go for an CS, your ASCP system, advanced supply chain planning system by Oracle. You'll go for an I2 JDA, you'll go for Kinaxis. You need to get so much of license, so much of server cost, and so on and so forth, like the ERP system. Now everything is pay per use, everything is license based, right? Can you? So I think cost with respect to the hardware portion and the software portion, thanks to the transformation what we are going through it, I am seeing even Indian SME companies, like small medium enterprise organization, who were very much shying away from usage of technology because they were saying that no, I can't afford any ERP implementation. If you guys look at any ERP implementation, any global ERP implementation will not come to you anything less than $500 million. So I'm talking about a 3,000 crores. If you are talking about a global footprint, right? In India, it could be 500 crores, 300 to 500 crores, right? Your SMEs are like nowhere into this journey, right? So this is, but by this transformation from a cost, right, from a cloud moving to a pay per use, paper license sort of a model, your sensors cost are becoming more affordable, your technology, your data processing cost is becoming cheaper, etc. So this is paving a path in India for a better adoption as we go along in this journey. So it would become more and more stronger in India as we proceed in this journey, is what my take on this, Ravi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I'll change a little bit of a track. So, a little bit talk about your, I think, very pioneer effort of SCPC. I think you started somewhere in Bangalore and then you brought it to Bombay. So would you like to speak about that, what you're doing and what your plans are?
Sure, Ravi. I think Ravi is one of the core team members, and he was our regional director as well. Some point in time, right? We set up this organization with a purpose with a vision in mind, saying that we want to make India as a go-to place for supply chain excellence, right? And in a small way, right? And we have started this in 2013, like we are like six years completion now, right? And then like Ravi has mentioned, it is we have started in Bangalore, and now we kind of completed around 29, 20, 30 odd editions. In Mumbai also we have started in 3 years back, and we have completed about 7 odd editions, right? The idea here is bringing in the practitioners, academia, from people from academia, people from consulting world, people kind of get together and share the best practices and create some good use cases to be shared within the industry. That's number one. Number two, we did talk about supporting the small medium enterprise, right? We could even we were talking about things like why can't a supply chain leader to adapt SME and coach them, groom them, and provide the insights, etc. This could be one idea. So we do have a multiple sort of a priority, and it's for a not-for-profit sort of a team led by a bunch of very senior executives from in the supply chain world. So we have what close to 1,500 odd members in this team. It was going very well till February, March, and we had a very great plans. In Mumbai, Niti has hosted once, and then SP Jain has hosted once. And we had a Godrej, we had Mahindra, we had Cipla hosting the event. The last one was in December by Henkel. And when we were thinking something in March, April time fence, I think thanks to COVID, it's kind of we are on a pace now, and I think we will slowly come out of this numbness, and when we go back to the new normal, I think I'm sure that we will able to reinstate our plan in the SCPC world.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So now, can I ask you to share some, some work where you have made major transformation anywhere without having to name the project or the company? What kind of transformation? What kind of results?
Okay.
Maybe in analytics phase.
So yeah. I'll talk about two initiatives. One is from a non supply chain front, non digital front, and another one in the digital front, right? The one is I would want to call out is we have coined this a program called Josh and Hosh. It was in Cadbury's, right? So we had a huge challenge with respect to the expiry of goods. The freshness has been a big challenge in India. I'm talking about 10 years back, and any edible goods and any milk based foods, you have a very short shelf life, and promotions heavily driven, etc. So we used to have some certain point in time huge write-offs, which is even to an extent of huge. I mean, it's like almost half of the marketing spend. So we were burning the inventories, right? So which is what we were going through it, and we have realized that there are two major elements where it was causing a big disruption. One within the organization footprint, and second is with the distributors and to the retailer. So we tried addressing these two in two different ways. How was it happening within the organization is what we were trying to correct it through this Josh and Hosh program, and we had almost 32 odd warehouses at that point in time. Typically a very cost centric organization. We had CFAs you had a mismatch of SAP to the physical inventory to the extent of 20%, 25%, no batch, no first in first out, no adherence to the stacking norms. You just pass a note on a write off. No motivation for the warehouse or the distribution employees to ensure that there is no, and it is like tons of destruction, and they have been more than happy to destroy the stocks, right? So this Josh and Hosh program is where we launched things on a pay for performance sort of a model. We have established a set of KPIs, just 5, right? Not more than that, in terms of batch accuracy, in terms of the audit accuracies, in terms of the expiry in your warehouse, in terms of so basically we almost doubled their salaries, right? One of the thing you must be all the supply chain practitioners would know is that the pay what we do to the warehouse employees, the staffs, even the warehouse managers, and so on and so forth, we have gone ahead and doubled their remuneration, but we put the second 100% on their attainment on the KPIs. So it is not only we did that KPI only, we did a lot of interventions, like we have we did the depot level interventions, the standard operating procedures, the audit team, the transportation audits. We did a lot of training programs. We did a lot of warehouse conferences. We have awarded the best warehouses of the region. tons of things have happened within the Josh and Hosh initiative. I think the results were very phenomenal, very phenomenal, and then we could able to almost cut down the expiry by half in that space. Means the warehouse managers who were not ready to talk to the area sales managers in the past have started pushing them, saying that boss, ye pehle clear karo. So that is the sort of, because the best guys to talk to ASM, area sales manager, is not the logistics director, it is the warehouse manager. Because in take a Raipur ASM sits in the warehouse, which he's supposed not to sit in the warehouse, but he sits in the warehouse, right? So means the rapport what they carry is huge, right? And we use that relationship also to push lot of the cleanliness in the supply chain. I think it was a very appreciated case at at that point in time. In fact, many of the organizations have started copying this became an industry-wide case study in 2010 around, right? The second one, I would say what Ravi was mentioning, right? This is the case on Dell when we worked on the advanced analytics related areas, the data science related areas, etc. Very simply, if you look at Dell in the past, they were into a direct to customer, make to order. Basically, you need to you need to select a configuration, you need to place an order, and you need to you will get the product shipped out, and then you get received in like say 20 days, and you take a lot of pride in saying that I have configured my own products, right? But 5 6 8 years back, the industry has changed completely different way. No one wants to wait for 20 days to, and Dell was number one. They were holding the number one share, and then you had a lot of competition being taken a lot of share from them, because they started playing in all the channels, right? They started playing in 24 hours delivery, they have started playing in the value added reseller, they started playing in the retail environment, they started playing in the e-commerce environment, right, with through Amazons and Alibabas of the world. So what we have done is in 2013 14, sorry 12 13, we did a bunch of data science initiatives to prepare the Dell's DNA is direct to customer, make to order, right? How are you going to change it to a 24 hours delivery? 24 hours delivery means, guys, why make to order? Make to order means you can you would make to an order a person who's sitting in the US, you will make the product in China, and you need to make to the configuration and ship it. So which means that you are going to take 25 days, versus you when you are confirming at 24 hours of delivery, you need to have that configuration readily available in the US shore. Based on the order, you need to ship it, right? It's a very complex one, and the combinations are running into trillions. This is what I was saying, that data science digital would thrive in complexity. So when you have such sort of a complexity, so we did plenty of initiatives in terms of, we call this channel transformation. Channel transformation means, when earlier you were into direct to customer, make to order, but now you are into make to stock, make to plan, 24-hour shipment, etc. So we have done a channel transformation from a direct to customer to other areas. So we did a lot of intervention, because we never know how to do forecasting for a finished good. We for a Dell before 2013, there is no word called finished good. Can you imagine, right? Because it is all component, right? So we brought in ideas on how do we do the forecasting. And interestingly, forecasting, unlike any other organization, I think technology, fashion, apparels is a different animal altogether, because you need to change the product every season, right? You have per the season you need to change the products, which means that you will not get the data series to do forecasting. You will not have. So there are good amount of analytics we have done how to build the model. Pricing, the third one, which configuration? So because you have trillions of configuration, would you able to put all those trillions of configuration into Walmart, Tesco, Vivek sales? No, you will not able to do it. So you need to pick and choose which configuration. So that is the configuration optimizer. So based on which one increases the profitability, which one fulfills customer expectations, etc. So we did a good amount of non-linear optimization. So all those work put together is what we have submitted to this France, so-called this award called France Edelman Awards. I think not many Indian companies have embarked into that journey. It's a 1-year journey, and we had competitions from Chevron, You all know Chevron. McKesson is the world's leading medical devices maker. Kruger is the US leading grocery guys. Bosteel, China's #1 steel maker, and world's third largest steel maker, and Dell. So it was a wow moment for me to take the organization to that level and to showcase the value of data science. Right? You need that the need. First of all, you need a need from the business to solve such a case. Second, you need to have the complexity to address that, and third one, you need to have organizational culture which which kind of enables you to deploy such solutions. So those two experience I would call it as like I would call it as a very transformational experience what I had. You're on mute, Ravi.
Yeah, thank you so much. So now actually I would like to go to another segment, to ask about your personal journey into supply chain management. So how did you get into here? Was it your dream or plan or wish, or it was accident? You just landed into it, or how did it happen?
That's an interesting one. So I did my production and industrial engineering. So from the engineering times, we have been talking about the inventory, manufacturing systems, your productivity, industrial engineering, thermalics, and what not, right? Your motion study, method study, and things around it. So I was fairly prepared to get into, and I was strongly a believer that two places where basically two floors at which the action happens, and I always want to be associated with that. One is shop floor, second is the shopper floor, right? Basically I believe that two people in an organization who work is, one is the production person on the machine, and second one is the salesperson who's on the street, right? So I thought always I want to associate myself to one of these two, and that's where I would say more like a design I want to get into a front end supply chain. It was very much design I want to be in an action packed area. What happened by default or by accident is the digital journey. Like I have mentioned, I'm not a computer science engineer. I'm always averse of any coding programming. I kind of keep 10 miles away from a person who talks about C plus Java at that time, right? So but after doing a good amount of procurement, logistics, planning experience in Marico, Cadbury's, this was happened as more like an accident with Dell computers, right? And I was not even prepared for that kind of it is kind of it was I would say is I was not even aware of what role I was applying, and I got the job, and then I realized after a couple of months, oh man, this I need to learn SQL, I need to learn SAS, I need to learn R, I need to learn Python, I need to learn cloud computing. All those things have happened, right? So it was an accident. It was an accident, but it is about I must be thankful to those organizations who are keeping patience, right? Giving a long runway for you to learn and make mistakes and kind of and kind of learn through your experience, which is not many companies are nowadays doing it. That's what to answer to your earlier question, Ravi. Do we have the same level of patience or a demand supply curve which was there 10 years back versus now? I think we don't have any patience, right? We don't have, as an organization, want a ready candidates and ready capable people. And I keep saying that any data science and analytics requires all these areas, right? Good programming, good business understanding, good problem solving, good technology understanding, what's happening around it, and good statistician, good statistical and operational research understanding. So, and my belief is if you want to get one person with all those competencies, are like strong in all competencies, I would say three people in the world can kind of three people I strongly believe could be a good fit. One is Lord Shiva or Vishnu or Brahma. So these are the three people I feel like could be good in all these spaces. So my philosophy is always like I would always look for a mix, and then someone who's low on something, and then we can elevate the person, etc. But I found the industry is not willing to provide that kind of leniency. Maybe to the point that you have so much of abundant talent, right? It is all about demand supply, right? So 10 years back, there may be a lack of supply, so people were willing to give a chance to someone, right? Versus now, this huge amount of supply. All the institutions have started some or other way a program on digital supply chain digitalization, data science, data engineering, data analytics. So means you get some good accreditation, good experience. You have so much of people in the market, so people are not really willing to give a really an entry to a person who's not from a digital domain, which has happened with me in 2009 and 10.
Wow, great. So I would like you to share some aha moment in your supply chain career.
Yeah, I already said it, right? One is the Josh and Hosh. I think I would say that the people who are in touch with me so far from my 20 years of experience, those are those 31 warehouse managers, depot managers, right? Most of them are still in touch with me, which is I would call it as an aha moment, right? That goes beyond, because they one of the things they keep telling me that I think this is one initiative or one team which has treated them as equal human beings, right? So they always means have bringing. I still remember taking them to Goa for a Jushin Hosh conference conclave, right? And taking them to Lonavala, right? Having some competitions. Like, people are very excited and going to every region. Delhi gathering, and we had it in Chennai, Ooty gathering. So means they feel that this is one a team or one leadership which has kind of started treating them as as an equal human being, right? I think that I always carry that great aha moment in my life.
Thank you so much. And that's really, when you respect people and bring it to the same level, I think they remember you for the whole life. It's
Sure.
a great sense, great feeling. So I think no one can replace work experience, but how much you would like to give weightage to structured supply chain training or education or certification, for example?
So my philosophy, Ravi, is around one should not associate their learning aspiration with an earning aspiration, right? So I keep saying, people who reach out to me saying that, sir, can I do this certification, can you do that certification, etc. My simple answer to them is, if you want to even do a BA in Marathi, if you like it, go and do it, right? Don't link you learn anything at any point in time, it is going to helpful at certain point in time in your career or in your life, right? Don't even attach any kind of link to your progression. But having said that, very importantly, supply chain, you are in supply chain, right? And there are outside things are moving very fast, right? And we talked about expiry, freshness of products. If you think that a Cadbury 5-star bar has a expiry, you can imagine and professional has learning has a lot of expiry, right? You need to have a lot of freshness, right? You need to keep yourself up to date, right? You need to have to know what's happening, so that you will not get rusted or you will not become expired, right? So from a professional context, right? So I would strongly recommend, right, irrespective of which course, which is the organization, I always say that, can you afford that? For number one, can you able to allocate time to do this course or a certification meaningfully? This is the only two things, right? Please go and do it. There is no other you will get a lot of insights, you will get a lot of network, you will always get to see things in a different angle. I think it is going to be helpful at any point in time in your career or life. So just feel free. And I've been seeing this um, big difference, right? Between a very developed nations and India, country like India, right? So you will see a person who studied legal in US. After some time, he thinks that no, I want to do accounting. Okay, he does accounting, and then after some point in time, he or she will start doing some supply chain areas. Then the same person would become a more of in terms of commercial, right? So that flexibility which is getting served in the Western world is not there in India. So that's the only thing what you need to be careful about it. You need to always play for a long term. That's the only recommendation I would have it.
So so thank you so much. To be more specific, when you are hiring people, I'm sure you're hiring people in supply chain. What are you looking for, and what is your advice to supply chain professional? What they should build, what kind of knowledge or what they should look for in the career?
So I would say to the point, Ravi. So we always look for relevant sort of an relevant experiences, right, in the past for sure. Plus, very importantly, around we did talk about is the person willing to learn, upgrade him or her is a very important factor. That ties to your earlier question. One of my, I'll not name the person, one of my senior vice president has declined couple of profiles saying that after his masters, he has not done anything. Can you imagine at that level, very senior position we were looking at it? One of the it was a very neck to neck, and the person whom we have declined rejected is from a very big brand, very relevant experience, so much of great credentials, but he said no because he did his masters in so on so years. After that 15 years he has not done anything. He has not upgraded himself at all, right? So he said no on only on this basis. So I would always say that keep upgrading yourself and try to and career, right? When we talk about career, it's a sprint versus a marathon. I will always approach like a marathon, right? You can't do changes overnight, right? You need to invest, you need to empower yourself, you need to demonstrate, you need to work in small areas. If you are working in a functional area, try to work on contribute to small portions of digital. If you want to switch, if you want to switch to a data analytics, right? I could see good questions on MIT SEM analytics course. So there are plenty of analytics. So I keep saying to the students, right? The earlier the knowledge was in two places, right? The knowledge was in books and into the professors, right? Now you have knowledge much more than that into this 5-inch or a 7-inch screen, right? So means it is only time and your motivation matters, right? Knowledge will come and knock your doors. That's a simple mantra. So you can look at what is allocating time meaningfully, build your expertise, learn the things, try to contribute in your work area, try to do some small pilot, small proof of concepts. It can fail, right? It's okay, it can fail. Talk to the experts, try to engage with some of them to build something. If you want to do a switch, typically people say that no, Murugan, I have 20 years of functional experience, I want to do tomorrow, I want to join data science or a digital, your data engineering team. I would say no, that's not quite possible. Which is, I'm setting up you for a failure and I'm setting up the team for the failure, right? So that's not the right way, right? You need to, it is a marathon. People now started thinking I need to run into a sprint. I need to just move from today. I thought I wake up from left side, I need to move into, which is not going to happen, right? So that's the only advice. So it is a marathon, right? Pause, slow pace, run, try and test, do some courses, implement in your work area, talk to people, demonstrate, right? Try to move within your organization. If you want to move from a functional area to a digital area, try to move within your organization by proving your credentials, demonstrating your capabilities, right? Then that makes you more, then you try outside, right? So those were the things an individual need to be very very need to keep in your mind. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I think we are running out of time and there are a lot of questions I think people have asked. So I'll hand over it to Gitesh. So Gitesh,
so many questions, huh? And very,
yeah.
it seems
So
people are very excited. Thanks guys.
Depending on the interest, I think, please you start one by one. I think we'll be able to take only two. I don't think we'll be able to take more than that. But please. Hello, Gitesh.
Are you there?
I'm not sure.
I think he's not. All right, so let me take up the question session. I think he's gone offline. Probably believe he's not able to hear it. So first of all, wonderful session, Murugan sir and Ravi sir. Wonderful insights. Uh, I was smiling and wondering most of the times like what is this happening and all these things we never knew. It's really amazing to know such stuff.
Sure, thanks.
Oh, yeah. All right. So let me start taking up questions. Okay, we have a lot of them. I have to see where do we start from. So let me start this from first question. Okay, it's by Miss Anupama Thakur. So she says, is the manufacturing organization believe in investing on there on should be some procure services from technology managed services who are investing on upgrading the technologies where we are in India in terms of tech advancements, basically.
Yeah, Nishush, I think I would say definitely there are a lot of appetite, but like I have mentioned, your margin pressures, your the profitability challenges are different with respect to different industries. That's where manufacturing is always getting squeezed, right? It becomes a chicken egg story, right? If you want to you want to invest money into technology to liberate cash, right? You want to create benefit, right? But you need to invest money into such technology. So manufacturing organization always get stuck between these two. But successful organizations, right? Successful organizations have been investing, right? And thanks to the managed services areas, what we talked about, right? Which is really transforming. And at least I would say the companies are even trying to do some pilots. Earlier, the pilots and the proof of concepts were not possible. Now, at least you can call a couple of companies. You call Amazon Web Services, you can call Azure, you can call Google Cloud, and you can ask them, right? And they are giving you versus earlier it used to be in millions of dollars. Now we are talking about hundreds, some hundreds of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So companies are seeing a benefit, and you will see this is going to be a big. The managed services, the cloud-based services, etc., is going to change Indian manufacturing sector as we go along. Not overnight, but this is going to be a trend. I would say in the recent past, a lot of planning solutions, right? Planning solutions is a bigger space where started using many. If you look at any big organization, planning solutions implementation is not a planning solution implementation project. Your 70% of the planning solutions implementation cost is data, storage, processing, connectivities, right? Making the data ready to be used by the planning solutions. You can just take it from the shelf, right? And then you can put it nowadays, right? So, but the backend readiness of your own organization, the so-called spaghetti, is something which would stop, which is getting addressed by all these cloud offerings currently.
Thank you so much. That surely answers that question. So I think Gitesh is here. He'll take it up from here.
Hello, thank you, Nistush. And unfortunately, just because the topic digital supply chain has come up, Mr. Murugan, the issue which I faced right now with regards to that, just out of the box, one thing, everything, is leading to centralization, like everything is getting centralized. And to have very less Wi-Fi providers in the country, is it a good sign to lead a digital supply chain era?
Why not? I think we are thinking from a constraint point of view, Gitesh, right? So I think I'll not only kind of put my argument or my projections based on only one factor, right? And if you look at which country has the most digital educated population, right? Which has most millennial population, who is more digital first natured population, is India. Fortune 500 organizations, 98% Fortune 500 organization has a hub only in India, right? And I can bring in so much of such statistics, right? Means COEs, Center of Excellence, right? Your global capability centers, GCC, GACs, you name anything, R&D, molecular discovery for pharmaceutical companies, your contact centers, your quality resolution, your tech support, your all BPOs, business process outsourcing, your all supply chain planning. Companies are doing supply chain planning centralization. Can you imagine Capgemini, Accenture, Wipro, TCS does more planning than all the world functional organization put together? But because these guys does for the world, and all these people are sitting in Bangalore, in Airoli, in Mumbai, and in NCR, right? So digital is happening, right? Whether are we going to consume or are we exporting? That is a good question, right? I strongly believe the more and more you export, and certain point in time, people are also observing, why can't I use it, right? I'll take any small example. I know a big MNC. Internally, India, they are not very keen on digitization, but their global has set up so much of big organization in India for 5 years. The India MD has decided, man, now I'm seeing so much of things, my company doing based out of India to the world. If I sit like this, and I'm going to get fired. So this person has started adapting digital and started doing some digital implementation in the organization. So this is going to be a nature of the game, right? Take any companies who is going to provide service to the world, India, that will happen.
So I would just like to add a comment here, Murugan sir. We were having a discussion in the chat group while you were speaking. Like they were saying, few of them were saying that Western countries are more keen to adapt on the digital transformation than the Indian companies. So I think you have perfectly explained what is happening on that front, who is adopting what from and from where. So thank you so much for that wonderful answer.
Welcome, Nishish.
Thank you, Nishish. Mr. Murugan, we have a next question from Mr. Chaitanya. He says, what are the operational, financial, functional KPIs which can be put to calculate performance? How analytics is really helping the organization?
Okay, so I would say, see, analytics is not kind of, my point of view is it can't be measured by one KPI, right? So analytics or data science needs to be embedded into the processes, every processes, and this analytics and data science capabilities need to improve that particular KPI. I'll give you an example, right? You do normal forecasting and you use some great baseline forecasting using Arima and intelligence, etc., which needs to improve your MAP and bias. Your inventory, you have a huge amount of inventory sitting everywhere, and you have a huge expiry problem. You do inventory optimization, you do a lot of visibility creation using data science. You on where your aging stocks is lying, and when it is going to expire, what sort of interventions you are going to do it. If you do this investment, you will reduce your inventory carrying cost and your expiry cost, right? That is the KPI. Right. The third one, if you do your transportation, right? If you are doing nothing and then you're doing based on your gut feel transportation method versus if you do some sort of a network optimization and trying to do a best route selections using your DRP, your some of the planning solutions, it is definitely going to reduce your distribution cost. So I would say very importantly, when you're trying to apply data science or data analytics into any program, you need to know what are you trying to do, what is the, and this is a very good question, what is the performance metrics you are trying to impact into that space. And MAP or bias, mean absolute percentage error, or a bias, and could be a forecasting measure, could be a supply chain measure, but organizations have started converting this MAP and bias into a financial metric also. Every organization has a thumb rule saying that, okay, 1% of MAP is equal to my $55 million of inventory. So there are many such conversion measures every organization uses it. So very importantly, data science programs need to know what supply chain measure we are trying to impact, and this supply chain metric, how it is connected to a financial metric, which is very good when you talk about inventory. I always found this inventory programs and has a very good direct relation we could able to establish. Second is the service level. Whatever you do to improve your service level, you would able to really link to your fill rates or OTIF, etc., which could be converted into a financial metric. So it is a program-based, focused KPIs is what we need to derive. So there is no one metric an organization can adapt. Could be you can sum up all these initiatives. What is your return on analytics? For an example, you have a team in which you are invested $100 million. Right at the end of the year, is this team generating $500 million, 1 billion to $200 million? You can assess that, but it is going to be project basis. You can sum it up and you can say this is my return on investment on a data analytics investment.
Right, sir.
And
So
plus,
Hitesh,
just to
how
add,
many questions you have and how much time we have?
There are sorry, go ahead.
No, Murugan sir, you can go ahead, please.
So that one example I would want to call it as, which I was trying to say, is there are a lot of initiatives around the organization called cognitive automation or intelligent automation or robotic process automation. I think this is happening, guys. Right? This goes back to the point on hype or fact, etc. I know. Per se, an organization in Powai were having 42 people processing the payroll, financial clearance, right? So you download from a financial statements, you do some massaging, you get to know who is supposed to pay. There are 40 people doing the job, right? 2017, all 40 got fired, and there is only 3 bots, bots we call it as RPA. RPA is robotic process automation, right? You can create programming for any repeated task, and you can eliminate human from that. So this is a direct saving to the organization. Same with purchase order processing, PR, goods receipt, whatnot. In a supply chain, we have so much of functions which does the same: data punching, data input, data correction, master data creation. Worldwide, one of the biggest functions is master data creation. Master data creation is nothing but, if you're trying to put a new product into the market, you need to enter 400 odd columns. What is MRP? What is this cost? What is that cost? What is the manufacturing side? What is the bill of material? There are millions of people are doing this work. Now there is a bot, right, which learns from the earlier entries and it populates. Means your work can be cut down by 1/10. End of the day, one person should accept or reject. So no need to enter. Right, this is a supply chain RPA initiative been done by many of the organization. Master data management for any new products. Right, it has been taken away. The job is taken away, and this is a direct saving, because you imagine paying to 100 people and versus running a bot. So this is a direct saving to your bottom line of an organization. Sorry, Nishish, go ahead.
So I've listened to some case study of HPCL also. This is very similar.
Yeah.
Right. So we have tons of questions ahead, like you had asked.
Right.
We have tons of questions ahead. I think we can spend another 10 minutes or so on questions.
Sure, Nishish, if people are 10 minutes, we can quickly go through the questions.
Yes, I think the amount of questions people have asked and people are enjoying, I think it'll take another half an hour more to get over with all the questions probably. So I'll take up next question, which is actually by a guest called Nikhil. What are the cost digital SCM tools which can be used by MSMEs in India?
So it's a very tough question, right? And like I mentioned, the digital could be meaning anything, right? It could be data storage, data processing, computing, planning, scheduling. Means digital or it could be solving any purpose. I would say a very fundamental thing which could be used by any SME is a good basic paper use ERP sort of functionality would be very good. Followed by some good cloud storage, right? Even whatever they want to do it, because basically the database capability is quite available in India, right? Whether it's a SQL or a Oracle DBMS, it is fairly available, so you can afford some person just to start doing. And I know one of the SME started using this database expert, started collecting they're into B2B, but they use the same resource to collect who are all the potential customers, right? It's a phenomenal thing. But again, this SME's the CEO is a good educated person, and he's an MBA, right? So means that's what I was saying. Culture is very important, right? And I would say one is the basic enterprise planning, enterprise resource planning, ERP equivalents of paper use. The second one could be a decent database in a cloud, sort of a digital intervention, so that you'll start storing the data, you'll start processing the data, you'll start accessing some of the industry data which is available already, right? So it is a search, and then you bring in the data, and then you can do your campaigns, you want to do some outreach programs, you want to do some sort of an analysis, etc. Everything is possible. So your foundational thing starts there in these two elements is what I believe.
So on the same line, actually, we have another question, which is asked by Mr. Gaurav Bhatia. So he says, like we have Gartner classification for our normal supply chains for organization. Is there a classification for analytics adoption as well? Like what is the maturity of the organization to whether adopt predictive analytics, IoT, machine learning kind of tools, something like that?
So again, the same Gartner has given the framework of again the maturity. I'll not say there's a best one, but that's what we have been using it. So they call it as 5 levels of maturity, right? Starting from descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, prescriptive, and cognitive. These are all the 5 levels, right? So, and I keep saying this quick example that it is about when you are having a running nose, you go to the doctor, right? The doctor will ask what has happened, right? So you'll start describing what has happened. So I said, doctor, I have a running nose, etc. That's called descriptive analytics, right? So which means that you are trying to describe what has happened, right? Then the doctor will start asking questions, right? Did you eat something? Did you go somewhere outside? Did you get into rain? So which means that he's doing diagnostics. So that's called diagnostic analytics, right? So you will understand why something has happened the way it has happened. So that's the second one. Third is predictive analytics, where doctor would say that, okay, you're having running nose, then next few days you will expect a fever to heavy fever. So that is a predictive analytics. So you are trying to predict what's going to happen in an organization. The last one, the second last one is doctor would prescribe you something, right? So you take this medicine, and this is a prescription. That's called prescriptive analytics. So you would able to do certain things in the supply chain or in any space, where in which you do that thing, and then you will able to shape the future. You would able to course correct, you would able to change the future. That's called prescriptive analytics, right? The last one is the cognitive capabilities, right? Where the it is taking to the next level, where you make a touchless supply chain, a human free sort of every compute machine to machine taking a decisions, etc. I think we are far away from that, but descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, we are there. I think most of the organizations are kind of using, whether from an Excel to a Tableau to a ClickView to any of the SAS or R, Python nowadays. Everywhere you can just install your machine and then you can start running it. So those things are taken care, is what I would say.
Great answer, Murugan sir. That actually answers a couple of more questions asked by the audience. So we'll take up last 3 questions. One is a very interesting question related to the career. So that's asked by by Miss Anupama. So she says that, is it possible for a transportation specialist to make a career into SCM who's not into digital domain? So how does that work in that scenario?
I think very good question, and I should say a very small example, right? There is this experimentation called Shark Tanks experimentation. So you put a shark into a tank, and what you have done is you put a big barricade in between, a glass barricade in the tank. So what happens is shark is keep hitting the strong barricade, and it could not able to penetrate through the barricade, right? So this is a shark tank experimentation. A shark keep hitting this strong barricade and it fails, and then over a point in time, after a couple of months, what this experimentation guys have done is they have taken out this strong barricade, and they put a more like a penetratable or a polythene sort of a very flimmy sort of a barricade. Guess what? No award to the person who's guessing it. This shark has never attempted to even go and hit it, right? Hit this barricade, right? Why I'm saying this is I keep hearing this transportation, supply chain, and to an extent people keep saying that, sir, I'm in sourcing, I'm not a supply chain person. No, give me a break, right? I will say that even supply chain is a man-made barricade, right? All this, it's a business. End of the day, it is a business, right? And transportation is part of supply chain is part of business, and procurement is part of supply chain is part of business. So don't ever get into this barricading sort of a thing that's saying that I belong to this and this belong to that. Not at all. Anything and everything is possible. Transportation is it is a big part of supply chain, but to the point I have mentioned, if you want to move from a functional area to experimenting in digital areas, it is a little challenging journey, but it is not impossible. Like I mentioned, try to upgrade yourself, try to learn certain things, try to experiment in your current role. Very importantly, try to do some small things in your current role. Talk to your in your organization, there will be some digital guys. Take their help, experiment something, do something in your hand, right? So it's very essential that you need to have some hands-on experimentation, hands-on, a little bit of an experience and knowledge before you want to jump into another area, which is where you have a huge amount of competition. You have a huge amount of supplies there. So if you want to even getting there could be easy, but would you able to win there? Would you able to shine there? Is a differentiator. So try to go step by step. Again, I go back to the point on it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Try to take one step at a time. It is possible.
Great. So actually, somehow, I don't know, it's a coincidence or how. Somehow all your answers are linked to the next question. So, it is falling absolutely in line. So like you right now said, going to your career, you basically, you gave some points. So that takes me to the next 2 points. If you have to go, is it, so the first question is by Mr. Saurav related to that. Basically, I'm relating that. So if you say you have to go in that space, so do you think for companies to get digital supply chain, they have to go expensive for expensive solutions like SAP, IBP, Kinaxis, etc., or is it possible to develop or become yourself digitally relevant without huge expenses as well? So that is the first question actually related to what you have asked. I'll actually ask the second question also.
Sure.
Said that, you have to, again, you said take helps and learn. So one question is by Mr. Nikhil. So he says that often organizations put data analytics results at side by senior management. Okay. And they believe on their informal network and their intuitions for to get market intelligence. So how do you change that attitude? If you say to take help, if that is the attitude, how do you change that attitude? And is it expensive to make yourself digitally supply?
Sure. Am I audible, Nishush?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. So the first thing, I think I've answered it already, right? The footprint of so-called digital in the past is drastically changing. So we are talking about SAP, IBP, Oracle. We're not talking about Ramco systems, which offers a pay-per-use ERP. Ramco system which offers, right? So you can use pay per license, per user sort of a license, you can pay it, right? And a lot of planning solutions, E2 Open, right? There are a lot of such solutions which just kind of operates in a paper license sort of thing. But the thing is, you need to have an appetite to invest that sort of money. It's not going to come for free. That's number one. Everyone should know. Everyone should be aware of the fact that it's not going to come for free. and they should have that conviction. That goes to the second point, right? That's a very important thing I said. The two things in which the digital thrives in: one in complexity, second in culture, organization culture. If your organization culture doesn't believe in data-driven decisions, if they feel that I'm there in the industry for 40 years and my decisions are best, I think this person is not going to do anything, right? And it's very very difficult to break that mold. But trust me, in any organization currently, if an executive want to be successful, I think the first skill been most sorted worldwide in supply chain is digital. Trust me, you go to any organization, people, whatever the level of digital could be, but they are talking about a digital native person. If someone says that, no, I know better than the numbers, I think this person is gonna get nailed at certain point in time, which is happening, right? So people are understanding from what's happening in the industry, what's happening to their colleagues. There's a huge changes happening, which I'm seeing in front of my eyes in the organization where I worked. And people are started realizing it is not easy to always rely on my intuitions, my gut feels, etc., because I'm going to retire. And I want, everyone is saying, and I always remember one of my MD's word very, um, we are not 100 crore organization where I can sit on a gata and then taking my own decisions, right? An organization grows beyond 200, 500 crores. It can't be a people driven organization. People driven decision making is not going to help in any organization. That needs to become a process driven organization. Process driven organization can happen only if you are dependent on the data and the digital investments. Because you are not going to get the data if you are not digital in nature, right? So it is a big change which is industry is seeing, going through it. The Indian executives are still, yes, I do agree to this question. There are a little bit of an inhibition, but they are seeing, every MD, every managing director has started asking this question: what is our competitive advantage? What is our core differentiator? Why consumers should come and buy from us? Why customers should choose us? What is the specialty of supply chain, our supply chain? And managing director level people across world, they are accepting nowadays, saying that it is not the organizations who are competing, it is not the businesses who are competing, it is the supply chains which are competing. We have seen in the pandemic time, it is proven that it is supply chain which is competing, right? So I think all the CSEOs are under a spotlight, and they are doing they are undergoing a lot of change management at this point in time.
Amazing, great. So I think with that we have taken both the questions that were planned. So I think we still have a lot of questions. I don't have time to take all of those because that would take easily another half an hour, like which we had discussed in the start. So what I'm going to do is, for all the participants, I am sharing the LinkedIn profile address of Mr. Murugan and Mr. Ravindra with you. So I've just shared it in the chat. So if you want, you can connect with them and take up all your questions personally with them. I'm sure they would be happy to connect and they'd be happy to answer you. With this, I'd like to just end the session, and on behalf of Noworks Education, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Mr. Murugan for taking out time and being a guest speaker for the India's first ever SCM talk show. This is the episode 2. Thank you so much, sir. It was really wonderful listening to you and learning from you. The audience have already loved your comments. They have been saying thank you so much for the insights. So wonderful having you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks all. I think being a wonderful audience and very curious, right? Curiosity is something what we are missing nowadays a lot, and I have never seen so many questions, and really appreciate Ravi and Nishtush for taking such initiative and connecting with the needy minds. Feel free to connect with me and share your questions in LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to share my point of views.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I think
we
had a wonderful session. No doubt about that. So we'll have to close at some point of time or other. Keep on going. People will have a lot of questions. So we'll close it now. And
I would.
Thank you.
I think talk will be on September 12th. So that is going to be on risk management, and Professor Grogeri, who is author of the risk management book, and he is also running an association in the US. He is going to join. He's accepted my invitation to join on this talk show. We will have it there. So thank you very much, all the audience. You've been very wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Murugan. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ravinder sir, for hosting this event and making it so much fun and interactive. You always keep learning from your vast pool of knowledge. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, whole community. If you like this, kindly do share among your friends and family. Please ask them to join the next session. Please spread the word in SCM community about the SCM talk show. And thank you so much for joining in. See you once again on September 12th at 4 p.m. on the same link. Goodbye and have a great weekend ahead, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.